The lateral raise is an exercise for your shoulders. Bill is going to show us today how easy it is to make this exercise easier or harder just by small adjustments in your posture and or arms. How we doing, Bill?
We're doing awesome.
He has an interesting story. Bill's lost how much?
I lost about 45 pounds, and I've gained about a 175% upper body strength.
Good, not bad, huh? Good. So let's go ahead and do the lateral raise. I prefer to have people do this in sitting because it offers greater pelvic control. So go ahead and get into position here. You start at about 45 degrees, and this is actually where you end too. That way you keep the muscles on tension. If you come all the way down here, the muscles tend to relax because gravity is not doing a whole lot of work on your shoulder. So you start at about 45 degrees, about here, sitting up tall, belly's drawn in, and then go ahead and raise up to make a cross, and then it's down, and then no pausing. It's just up and down, and the head stays still. Not to the side, not falling forward. You want to keep the head as still as you can. Believe me, it wants to move, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. And then the other thing you want to avoid is letting the dumbbells come out here, because then you're just training pretty much the strongest part of the shoulder, which is here. We're after the middle and even the posterior deltoid back here. So if you look at this from the side, the dumbbells are actually almost behind the ear. Now, how do we make this easier? That's getting hard, isn't it?
Yes.
You're getting a little bit of a spritzing going. Now go ahead and bend your elbows. Now, is this easier or harder?
Easier.
Good answer. It is a lot easier. Why? Because, you go and let that one down. Look at how far away this is from the body. That's a long distance. That's the definition of torque. Torque simply means a rotational force. So the rotation is happening at the shoulder. If I let go, that's kind of hard to hold because look at how long the lever arm is. If I bend the elbow, and now when Bill does a lateral raise, is that a lot easier or harder?
A lot easier.
Yeah, because the moment arm, or the lever arm, is cut in half. So that's how you can manipulate that. Now you just want to make sure that you focus on the shoulders and don't come up any higher than parallel. Why? Let's show them. Go ahead and set the dumbbells down. And turn around. Yeah. So let's look at Bill's right shoulder. Here you go. So the triceps are here. Here's the shoulder blade. This is the deltoid, or the muscle on the outside of Bill's shoulder. And then here are the rotator cuff muscles. And that's what we're going to focus on here. As Bill lifts his arm up and out, the further he gets away from his body, the rotator cuff muscles have to work harder to try and keep the humeral head in the socket. So if you look at the rotator cuff muscles, we'll switch shoulders this time. The rotator cuff is just simply 4 muscles. That's it. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and then one on the back side of the shoulder blade called the subscapularis. So the rotator cuff muscles just simply rotate the humerus, this bone. So as you start to bring the arm up and out, the rotator cuff muscles have to work harder to try and keep the head in the socket. So if I keep going up higher and higher and higher and higher, and the rotator cuff muscles are working harder to try and keep it in the socket, I can get what's called impingement, where this bone bumps right into what's called the acromion. And that's not a good thing. So Bill, go ahead and have a seat. So as you can see, training the shoulders doesn't require a lot of equipment. And it's really quite simple, but it takes some discipline. You can do it. Bill did. The lateral raise is a great exercise for the shoulder. It also is good for your neck, but you gotta try to keep your head still. Lateral raises basically train one area of your body only, your shoulders and part of your neck. What you want to focus on when you're doing lateral raises is trying to keep your arm as straight as you can and your head still. Let's look at the motion capture for a second. This is the correct way to do it, in my opinion, where you keep the arm completely straight and you keep the head still, and the hands align with the elbows. This makes it so that you really have to maximize the work on the shoulder and the neck muscles. What I mean by that is, let's go to the side here. See, I can kind of whip them around here to the side. Actually, we'll go to the top. See how the arms go straight out? The tendency for most folks is to try and get the hands in front of the shoulders to where it's actually going in front of them. That makes it so they're really not treating the back part of the shoulder and behind the neck hardly at all. But by keeping the arms straight out, you're going to recruit or use muscles
both on the back, the side, even a little bit of the front. A variation is to do this with the arms bent, and I see this a lot. My question to you is, why is this so much easier with the bent arm compared to this? So if I straighten my arms versus bending the arms, well, the answer is physics. Look at the difference in the lever arms compared to each. The lever arm is just simply the distance from the axis of which you apply a force. The force, one of the things that affects force, is the dumbbell in your hand. The lever arm is the whole length of your arm, and the axis is your shoulder. So here's the length of the lever arm, right? If I cut that in half, look at that. If I cut it in half and do it this way, I can do it with my bent arms, and I can use probably twice as much weight. So I recommend doing it with a straight arm so you can use less weight and make it so that you don't have to introduce forces to the elbow, which, by the way, you do if you do this such that the hand gets higher than the elbow. See, this is what I'm talking about. See how the hands get higher than the elbows? What that means is not only are your shoulders doing less work, but you're also creating a torque or a moment in the elbow that tends to irritate some people. So I recommend doing it with a straight arm. But I want to just show you the shoulder here for a second. This is the left shoulder. So if I'm sitting here doing lateral raises, this is my left shoulder. When I bring the arm straight out to the side, the rotator cuff muscles keep this bone down and into the socket so I can actually get the arm out. If my rotator cuff is weak, or if I'm trying to compensate with my upper traps, which is really common in the gym, you're going to get this. It actually creates an illusion to where if you're raising, if you're shrugging this way, or getting the hand higher than the elbow, you're actually only abducting to this level rather than coming all the way up straight. That is why I'm telling you to keep your arms straight. If you keep your arms straight, it creates a true lift where you're actually going straight out. So if I'm keeping my head still and I keep the shoulder blades very still and I don't shrug, the amount of calories you can burn is pretty ridiculous when you think about it, because keeping all these bones still while lifting the arm straight up and out and not shrugging really takes a lot of work. But that's the whole point of this, is to burn calories that you really don't want to carry around all day. So remember, when you do your lateral raises, keep your head still, go straight out, don't arch your back, focus on the shoulders. It's nice.